All right, welcome to another episode of the Horse Racing Happy Hour. I still remember how to do this, Louis. Mike Gandolfo, Louis Rabeau, we are here, and even though I've been a little hit and miss, I don't miss my road to the Preakness shows.
Nope.
Because I'm the biggest John Piazzic fan there is in the world. I just want to be, I want to throw that out there. So we got, of course, John Piazzic join us. We've got Dan Illman from the DRF, but very special guest is Scott Wyckoff from WBAL, like the voice of Baltimore radio and the Preakness, right? Like this is big time, right, Louis?
Our guy, what's going? Scotty Wyckoff.
Hey, and this is a big deal because this is past my bedtime. I get up at 1:30 in the morning to make sure Baltimore is informed. So this is big time for me.
I'm telling you, that is like the quintessential radio guy's voice right there, right? A little bit of Bob.
Scott's got it. He's got everything. No,
yeah, there's a little euchre in there. There's a little. I mean, it's will you just say hi and outside for me?
I've always wanted to know: are there a lot of fires in Baltimore that you cover, or are there a lot of fires in Baltimore because of Scott Wyckoff?
I think there's both ways. I think if it's a slow news day, they think they can get some publicity if they get it going. So on Monday, on President's Day, I'm thinking I'm just going to be out doing something real quiet and hanging out, and some fire breaks out. So I run to the scene and, of course, step in a puddle with my loafers and do it. But getting fired up for the Preakness, all sorts of stuff starting to get into the works, and people really with the new plan for racing in Maryland, I think are going to be coming to Pimlico with a new thought that this is what the future of racing is going to be. Because in the past, we've always thought, well, maybe there'll be a little something here at Pimlico and then Laurel. But now with the word that everything's going to be shifting over to Pimlico, I think it'll be interesting to see if people start to embrace it and reach out and really realize that this is where the future of Maryland racing is going to be.
Well, I have something very difficult that we have to get to, Mike, and it relates to what Scott just talked about.
Okay.
I have horrific news about this show.
About this show?
Yeah, these
are we getting canceled?
Shows have become our most popular winter episodes, and I'm not happy about that because the people like Dan Illman, but I don't. I mean, that's really what this comes down to, and it's just
if you believe in ratings, you might be out.
No. But there you go. I had to make sure Mike was here. I had to be here.
I mean, big time Dan Illman, who acts like he doesn't even know who we are when we're on the track. Is that what you're talking about?
I have a
not true, by the way.
It's called the sport of kings, gentlemen.
Route to sprint.
He did talk to me. He said, "Would you mind getting me another water, sir?" He slipped me 100. That's
does your credential get you in here, Louis? Are you sure you should be here? So, Scott, something you don't even know, and you're Mr. Baltimore. So Pimlico is largely unrenovated. We can all agree. And I love Pimlico. But they have a room next to all the
call that vintage, Louis. It's vintage.
Just for Dan. I don't know if people know this. There's a massage chair in there. He's got a butler. It's a whole thing. I don't know if people know this, but Dan Illman, Preakness comes around. Everybody, he starts walking. It's a little like Moses. The sea parts. People get out of the way. Dan, can you speak to that?
It's called leprosy. Yeah, that's no, seriously. I listen. I'm kind of a big deal in this business. I've been doing it for 5 years. I do it exceptionally well. I think I deserve a little bit of respect. They won't have me in New York. Here I am in Baltimore.
We got Ed DeRosa complaining about how we're treated at other tracks and the food at other tracks, and in walks down Illman with his butler service and all this other stuff. And so,
it's a problem. I'm telling you.
DeRosa's
Scott
like,
Wyckoff gets stuck in the parking lot where I can barely find him. I'm trying to do a spot with Scott. He's got a bunch of super high-end WBAL stuff. Illman's got a throne. I don't even know what to do with him.
You were gone for a long time when you left after we had our show and you left to go do Scott's show. Like, you were gone for a really long time.
I actually had to walk to the Virginia state border to do that show. That's how far they moved. It's the whole thing. Scott, I mean, you're talking about this new plan for Maryland. What are you most excited about outside of, Scott Wyckoff wanting to be, have more races just in his backyard?
Right. Well, I'm excited about the fact that they finally come up with a way to make sure the tracks are managed properly. So what goes into the tracks goes back to the tracks. And I think that's what they're doing. And they've come up with a way to a model that's very similar to what they're doing with NYRA and what NYRA's been able to do successfully, and what Naira's doing right now, the tear down and the rebuild at Belmont is almost exactly, to a little lesser degree, is exactly what they're going to do at Pimlico. They're going to re-image Pimlico, much like they're doing at Naira at Belmont. And I think it's going to make for a future where it's really going to benefit the gamblers, the people that really support they're the backbone of racing. And I think what it's going to do is it's going to offer a product that's going to be dependable, that they can count on, and also a product that's going to be benefit from what people bet. Money is going to go back into racing in Maryland to make it better. And I think that's the biggest benefit of this new plan.
Well, there you go. Tell us the truth. How much do you watch the road to the Preakness? As much as John Piazzik, that's essentially what I'm asking.
Well, the road starts to heat up now. You got the Miracle Wood for the boys, the wide country this weekend for the girls, and we got the Tessio come up around the corner. I think around here, people really start to pique their interest when you really start to see some of these out of town races that are leading up to the Derby, and then the Tessio comes up, and it's always interesting to see if there's going to be a Maryland horse that's popular here that's going to make it into the Derby. That's when people's interest is really peaked. But then also, if a horse is doing well, coming off its 2-year-old year, getting through some of these prep races, and maybe does well in the Tessio, then people will latch onto that. Coffee with Chris last year was an example of that, but also an example.
Never heard of that horse, John. Why did you not, John Piazzik? Why did you not tell us about Coffee with Chris? I feel like we've never heard about this horse.
I feel like it was less than 30 times you told us about Coffee with Chris.
Yeah, only 30. Really should have put like a little timer on a phone so I could have called you every hour during Preakness week and be like, "Hey, Mike, you about Coffee with Chris? Here, the latest on him. See what's going on? His only purchase for $1,500, and he goes back like 5 generations. Ever heard about that? Yeah, Mike. Yeah. Mike.
And we all saw what happened with Coffee with Chris. So, that's, and Louis and I talked about that when we were doing our local show on WBAL, is that there is a distinct difference in the horses that are coming to the Preakness from these Derby prep races and, races that are just predominantly run at Laurel Park. And that's not taking anything away from the Maryland breds or the Laurel, but you've also got, these horses from all over the country that are also pointing into that field. And that's what makes it real difficult for a Maryland bred that's not in the road to the Kentucky Derby to do well in the Preakness, because they really haven't seen some of the, been in races where the speed figures are up like where they are when you're heading towards the Derby.
I will say this, though. There's probably, not to give too much away, there's probably at least 2, if not 3 horses in this year's Miracle Wood who I think are better than Coffee with Chris. So if they keep moving forward, we could possibly see a bona fide, at least Preakness dark horse in this group, we'll have to say. But I think
But that being said, it's as tough as it is for a Maryland bred to win or even compete in the Preakness. It's going to be even tougher this year because the Baffert Train Armada is all going to be heading for the Preakness because they're being denied the Kentucky Derby. So you're going to have to deal with a Nisos, perhaps, who right now, to me, is head and shoulders above the entire division, yet can't compete in the Kentucky Derby.
Saw it last year. I mean, it played out last year. And I think that it's a real good point, Dan, that this whole Bob Baffert dynamic. And I mean, Baltimore, the Preakness, Maryland, they embrace Bob Baffert. I mean, they're like, if you don't want him in Kentucky, we'll take him in Baltimore and we'll take whatever you got. And he knows that, and he plays it up and he uses it to his advantage, and he makes money on it because he's got owners that want to win the big Triple Crown races, and he delivers the Preakness.
And that's very important, Scott, because we see so many other trainers nowadays, they skip the Preakness. They run in the Derby. Oh, we can't run back in 2 weeks. It's too taxing for our horse. We'll wait 5 weeks. Our horse really loves the 1.5 miles of the Belmont. And we see that doesn't work out a lot of times, but you see shorter fields in the Preakness because horsemen just don't run their horses that much anymore. With Baffert, at least, you're going to get at least 1, maybe 2 in the Preakness.
Was that direct shots at Bob Baffert? I mean, not Bob Baffert, but Todd Pletcher?
No comment.
Yeah.
Dan's looking through his wall to see if Pletcher can hear him in the next apartment.
Go ahead. Don't say his name 3 times in a row.
Don't say Todd Pletcher, Todd Pletcher, Todd Pletcher. Okay. Yeah. Oh no. Hey Todd. No.
But Scott, is there a horse? Do you have a? Why don't you give us your picks? We'll let you get out of here. But why don't you give us your picks here? The wide country, obviously, on the Black Eyed Susan side, and then the Miracle Wood on the Preakness side.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a horse that looks like it's got all the numbers at Laurel, Copper Tax, Triple Crown eligible. They really like Gary Capilano likes what this horse has done. It had the 5 straight wins last year. It won at 6 furlongs at Laurel before. It had a real nice speed figure. I think it was like a 98 in the James Lewis Laurel. So, and it's a horse that it's shown up in some races and won a lot of money. But also 10th in the Sam Davis a couple of weeks ago in Tampa. So again, if we're looking at horses that race on a nationwide stage or horses that race on a Maryland stage, Copper Tax at a morning line 3-1 looks pretty good. But I mean, Sweet Sadi J also at 4-1, a lot of wins last year as a 2-year-old, but winless in a couple starts as a 3-year-old, but still, it's a horse that's kind of got to make up for this. But also, I mean, this is a field of 11 horses that has, I think, 3 or 4 30-1s in it. So, I mean, you've got a couple clear favorites, but you've also got some wide open runners with folks that think they might have somewhere to go. I think for the fillies in the wide country at 7 furlongs, look out for Brittany Russell. I mean, she is red hot. For a while, Brittany Russell was making a name for herself in Maryland. She's now made a name for herself on the national stage. And I'd be very surprised if in coming years, she's not racing horses year round at tracks all around the country, because as well as she's done on the New York circuit with some of her horses and what she's done in Maryland, and she's got a, Perfectly Wicked on the rail at 5-1. Jevian Toledo really runs well with her. I mean, people would think, well, why isn't her husband Sheldon riding? She has a great relationship with Jevian and his people, and they do real well together. 5 starts, a couple a win last year, second and third. I think that that Perfectly Wicked looks good. Circle P might be some value at 12-1. Really raced pretty heavy as a 2-year-old. Got I think 4 or 5 starts, couple wins, had a 80+ speed figure in December in a stakes win. So you might get some value out of Circle P at 7 furlongs in the wide country.
Brittany Russell hitting the board 60% of the time last year. I mean, really, we talked about it last time, I think, when we did this show, about last year was like the year that the female trainer really stepped up, and Brittany was part of that, as well as Jenna. I mean, it was an incredible year for Brittany. Almost $8 million in earnings last year for Brittany Russell.
Yeah, she said,
by the way.
And she was impressive on the national stage. She did real well in Maryland. She won the racing title for trainers in Maryland. But when she won some big races up at Saratoga, but also she was very prominent in the sales in Saratoga. And that's something that a lot of people sometimes forget about. When they see these trainers and they see them helping owners buy quality horses, that makes a big difference. And Brittany played a big role in getting some, I think, quality horses for some owners. And that's only going to help her down the road.
I think to that point, last year she had 17 graded stakes starts. All her previous years combined, she was at 15. So she had more graded stakes starts last year than her previous 4 years combined. So
there you go. All right, Scott. We appreciate you very much. Go get some sleep. I'm sure there will be an exciting Baltimore happening for you in the morning. Do you want to hear my Scott Wyckoff impression?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Try to think of a neighborhood I want to feature here. Is it Hamden? Is that the name of the neighborhood that I went to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Hamden's good.
Hi, it's Scott Wyckoff, WBAL, and I'm here in Hamden for the opening of a new donut shop. You should come check it out. Tons of toppings and like 12 different varieties of coffee. Is that good? Did I do a good job? Is that a Scotty White? Hey, how about that? All right, let's go.
Illman loved it.
One quick story for you. One of the best Scott Wyckoff imitations ever was when Cal Ripken was going into the Hall of Fame. We all got, each reporter in Baltimore got like 10 minutes with him. So I did my 10 minutes with him, was interviewing him. I finished it up. He saw me push the button to stop the recorder, and then he said, "Hey, stop Wyckoff, you sound just like you do on the radio."
Love it.
Oh man! All right, that was a humble brag. If you're out there, you have to drink. You talk to Cal Ripken Jr. That's a humble brag. That is. I don't care for 10 minutes. He's Scott Wyckoff. He's over at WBAL. Hey, buddy, we'll see you in a couple months.
All right, tally ho.
All right, see you, Scott.
There it was.
I like that a lot. That wasn't a humble brag. What that was is a very nice guy telling you to stick it. What happened is that you think you're a big shot. You want to, make fun and tell jokes and basically, how I'm going to impersonate this guy. And he's like, yeah, Cal Ripken. What about you, Jabroni?
I agree that that's exactly what just happened.
Yeah. Did Cal Ripken ever do a Louis Rebeau impersonation? That's what he wants to know, right? So
there is none. No one's doing those things. Yeah.
No.
That's great.
All right, let's talk about what happened last week in the big races there down at the Risen Star and the Rachel Alexandra. All right, look, we're gonna go first to the Sierra Leone performance in the Risen Star because I think a lot of people think that this horse is risen to the top of the ranks, and I just want to hear. Let's see the replay here, and then let's get everyone's take on it.
Cardinal Awesome Ruda chasing freedom is 4 wide. B Dancer, Real Men, Violin toward the inside as they turn for home after 3/4 in 1 minute 14.74 seconds. Track Phantom charging on the outside is Resilience. Hall of Fame flattens out. Chasing freedom, trying to keep a straight path, and Sierra Leone charging hard on the outside. It's Track Phantom, Resilience, Chasing Freedom in tight quarters between horses. Sierra Leone on the outside for Tyler Gaffalione. Sierra Leone.
All right, there we go. There's our boy right there on the race call from Indiana, right? So
yeah, Johnny Dooley. Yeah, there you go.
John Dooley there. Is
New Yorker John Dooley? See, I did the thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is Sierra Leone now the overall choice for you guys?
No.
All right, I like it.
No, he did everything I think that Chad Brown wanted him to do. He passed a lot of tests, and I think Chad was nervous about the wet track. He had to go a pretty demanding distance in his first start of the year, and he ran down some nice horses. He's obviously a very good horse. He's one of the ones right now. We, John and I were talking about it after the Remsen. I think we were both at Laurel that day, and we said, boy, we can't wait to see him face Dornoch again because Dornoch may never beat him again. He had such a tremendous advantage on the rail on Remsen Day, and Sierra Leone had to rally very wide. I thought he showed a lot more maturity in his first start as a 3-year-old. I thought the figure came back solid enough. I think it was a 90. He's very good.
And Dan, that's really what we're looking for here, right? I mean, how they progress from race to race. I mean, that's a huge part of it because, again, this is basically a middle school athlete.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And I think you don't want to see him pop a 103 buyer right now and hit his peak in the middle of February. You want him to peak the first Saturday in May. I think it was a good first step forward for him. He's shown ability since day one with his running style in a race like the Kentucky Derby, being a deep closer. Well, you're going to need a little pace, which you're going to get in the Derby. And then you're going to need a lot of racing luck, which everyone needs in the Derby, because as a true closer, you got to weave your way around through or go all the way around. But for some reason, I'm not as excited about Sierra Leone as everybody else is, but I think he's very, very good.
I do think that pace has been interesting because it's something we've had recently, but it's not something that we get historically. So, John, what about you? What do you think?
Well, as Dan alluded to, I thought Sierra Leone ran a huge race in the Remsen. I mean, on a fair track, he probably wins by like 2.5 or 3 going away, and he would have been a much lower price on Saturday than he actually was. I thought it was a very professional win. He did what was expected, what he had to do, come from last, closed very stoutly. Thought he had the front runners measured at by the 8th pole, and he did. Buyer came back in 90, not that great. It's good, but as Dan said, I thought he brought up a good point. I'd rather have him still in ascendance mode where he's building up his figures rather than peaking now and kind of declining. I do think people are kind of eager for a 3-year-old hero in light of Niso's not being allowed to run in the Derby and then Fierceness losing in the Holy Bull. I think everyone's kind of looking for somebody a jump on, and Sierra Leone happened to be the flavor of the week. I think 6-1 or whatever he was in the last Derby Future book is just really goofy because even if he wins his best start, he might still be like 6-1 on Derby Day. And I guarantee you, if Timberlake wins on Saturday, The exact same things that everyone said about Sierra Leone, I'm going to say about him. So if you like Sierra Leone in the Derby that much, I think you're a lot better off waiting until Sunday to bet him and probably get a lot better price, even though his reputation's still the same.
Louis, how do you feel about Sierra Leone then taking that route? If Chad Brown thinks he actually has a contender about going maybe to the Bluegrass Stakes, I mean, that has not proven to be a route that's going to produce a Derby winner here lately.
Not lately, but I do think I think in Brown's case especially, he doesn't have a big operation in New Orleans, so it doesn't make sense for him to have one of his very top Derby contenders at the fairgrounds, and that's not a knock at all on the Louisiana Derby route to the Derby, but rather just I think in his case it's just easier for his operation and for the horse himself to be at a place like Keeneland where Brown's got an established presence, and so I think he's looking more at that. Frankly, it caught me off guard that he was on that card, that he was in the Risen Star. I was not used to Chad Brown's name being on their cards. And so I think, Mike, it's more of, and I don't want to call it convenience, but I think it's more of just utilizing what he has in place already. And I think Keeneland's that spot and Fairgrounds simply isn't. As far as where he ranks in this group, I agree with what John said last, which is I think a lot of us are just hoping that someone's going to break through in this class. And I've been spending the last couple of weeks watching allowance races, trying to figure out if there's a 3-year-old somewhere that might be on someone's radar that we just aren't paying attention to. I was trying to figure that out. If Cox has Tennessee on the route here in at Turfway to try to pick off the Ruby and make it, is there another horse, running on the other card? Obviously, he tried to get Nash back in that allowance. That didn't work. And so with Sierra Leone, I think you're just like John said, you're seeing a really good horse who ran a really good race. And look, one of the things I do like is that he won in the slop. It rains on half the derbies. And I like that he had a bunch of dirt kicked in his face. It didn't bother him. That matters. Dan brought it up. You got to make your own path, right? And so we've had winners in consecutive weeks, took a bunch of dirt between him. And look, I don't think Mystic Dan's winning the Kentucky Derby, but he's going to be there. And, if he's willing to take a bunch of dirt in his face, that's the kind of horse you want to include.
I think Chad picked these spots out very, very wisely because of the Remsen. He got 1 1/8 race into him. And I think he just wants to keep him at 1 1/8. And I think the Bluegrass is just a perfect spot for him from a timing standpoint. You run at a racetrack like Gulfstream, well, it's kind of speed favoring at times. It probably doesn't work for this horse. Oaklawn, we know, is a very tough road. You're going to get 13, 14 horse fields in there. The Bluegrass will have a good field. But because of what Mike says, a lot of trainers haven't been, aiming their big guns for the Bluegrass. By Bluegrass time, they want to be in the Derby by then. Right. I think Chad knows what he wants. He's already in from a point standpoint. I think he's sitting on go. You're looking for an under-the-radar 3-year-old. I mentioned this horse a while back on this show. He's running in Saudi Arabia on Saturday. His name is Forever Young. He is very good.
It'd be quite the thing, man. We've never had that horse who's shown the maturity to be able to make that travel and really perform at that level. So it would be groundbreaking if that happens.
If you're watching right now, you have about 24 hours to get that horse at a future pool. Do it.
Right, because I feel like Japanese horses lately have become wise guy horses almost like automatically. So if he wins even somewhat easily on Saturday, half of Twitter is going to be like, "It's a Derby winner. That's the big horse. Look out, America." And it's like, bruh. And also, going back to Chad Brown and a Bluegrass, he did this 2 years ago with Zandon. He ran him in the Risen Star. Yeah. He came in third, won the Bluegrass, and ended up being a solid third in the Derby. So history could repeat. Hopefully, a little bit better for Sierra Leone, but it's the same idea.
There's no glass.
The Derby's a good check, my friend. Yeah.
Trying to win the Kentucky Derby. Come on now.
Awesome. You should do that every
episode. We got well.
We should do what? What'd you say, Louis?
You should do the blah every episode. I appreciated that.
I thought you said bruh. Like this freaking millennials.
John's hair gets longer and mine just keeps disappearing. It's a hell of a
before you got on, he's harvesting for you, is what he's doing.
That's right.
Full transplant action from John.
I like it. It's got to be at least 13 inches. That's what she said. All right, let's go on to the Rachel Alexandra and see what happened there, because Brad Cox taking this one with Tarifa. Hopefully I said that right.
Is now running second to last, and Pennick has dropped back to last as these 3-year-old fillies turn for home here on a sloppy track at the fairgrounds after 3/4 in 1 minute 13.15 seconds. Alpine Princess, Tarifa charging hard on the outside. Perfect Shot and Intricate is also mounting a late bid. Then Vivi's Dream. Pennick is the distant. It's Tarifa who's taken the lead here for Flavian Pratt. Intricate is now second. Perfect Shot third. Alpine Princess drop back. Tarifa in the Rachel Alexandra Stakes. Tarifa finishes on top by 3 from
Tarifa pretty dominant there. I mean, I don't know what there's a whole lot to add to that. So, John, we'll start with you. What do you think?
Well, not unlike the older counterparts, top three really generally don't blossom till the closer to the Oaks. I've noticed that generally you don't see the top contenders usually debut till about now, or maybe even a little bit later. That being said, it was a very sharp effort. She got very well bet late, and late money ended up being the smart money, sat off the pace and kicked away. Looks like Brad Cox has a nice Oaks contender in his barn, and as we'll talk about in the next, 10-15 minutes, he could have another one coming up soon. Well, we'll talk about that in a bit.
Louis, anything to add to that?
The giveaway should have been that West Omaha ship to Oklahoma. That should have been the giveaway here. The best thing here, though, I thought, Dan, and I'll kick it to you pretty much right away. I thought she looked great. Nothing against Tarifa. Did everything right. Came off that turn beautifully. Did everything you want to see a two-turn dirt horse do. She looked awesome. Man, second place runner here. We just talked about Sierra Leone in December, coming into this month and running a really good run in the Risen Star. I wonder if Intricate isn't going to be the horse coming out of this race that we look at in a month and a half or whatever and say, that's my Oaks starter. And I do wonder for Brendan Walsh there, that team, if she's going to end up being the one that comes out of this race really well, coming off the layoff herself. We had 3 horses in the middle of that field coming off at least November-ish layoffs. She was one of those. She finished the best of those, including in front of VD's Dream, who was excellent as a 2-year-old. And so to see that out of her, Dan, I think she's the one to watch going forward.
Surprisingly salient points. I think you're absolutely right, though. I think one of the tell was that Cox sent the other one to Oaklawn. This one ran fine. Good trip. Little bit green in the stretch on her left lead till she made the lead. She did everything right. She's going to be okay, and she's going to get to the Oaks. I think the runner-up probably didn't care for the wet track, had a little bit of a worse trip. And as a horse, again, for the first start back, if you ask Brendan Walsh, what do you think? He's like, good starting point.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is typically a pretty solid race, and I think this field lived up to that. Like you said, Louis, Vivi's Dream is in this race. Alpine Princess was in this race. I mean, this is a good solid field, and we know that this race has produced some pretty good horses in the past. So
it's actually the winners list of this race, I think, in the last 10 years is as good as any race in America. Pretty Mischievous, Turner Loose, Clairiere, Finite, Serengeti Empress, Monoboy Girl. I mean, this race is an absolute who's who of who's been great as a filly, or even going into their 4- and 5-year-old years with a horse like Clairiere, right? And so, no, absolutely. Keep tabs on the horses that come out of this one.
And even the horses, like you go back to that 2020 year when Finite won, British Idiom came in second and Swiss Skydiver came in third.
Yep. No, it's a really it's a great predictor. It's actually a better predictor of who's going to win the Preakness than the Tessio. How about that?
You're not wrong.
That's a good joke.
That is a great joke. I'm with you, Louis. I'm with you. All right. Well, let's get into, I think we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but the question is, have we seen the Derby winner on the Derby Trail yet? I mean, is that a horse? Have we seen it? Does the Derby winner have any Derby points yet?
I wouldn't be surprised if Fierceness won the Derby if he got better this spring. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't love him right now. I don't love colts who are good at 2 being great at 3. It usually doesn't happen. And so, has he run in a Derby prep? I'll say yes.
You think the Derby winner has Derby points right now, or is one at least running a prep? Right?
At least running a prep, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
John, have we seen the Derby winner yet?
I'm inclined to say yes, especially since I haven't seen any maiden winners who really blew my socks off, and I feel like at this point, you had to have at least broken your maiden for me to really take you seriously, and especially in the last few years, like last year, last year Mage hadn't yet run in Derby prep, but he had turned some heads with this win on Pegasus Day. I really haven't gotten that vibe from any non-stakes horse we've seen, so I'm inclined to say yes, we have.
I'm going to say the Japanese horse has no Derby points whatsoever right now. Won't get him even if he wins on Saturday. Will get him when he wins the UAE Derby. Locked, on the other hand, is the horse stateside. That's the one I'm looking for. He missed his intended start in the Sam F. Davis, came down with a little illness. I trust Todd to have him ready for the Tampa Bay Derby. I think that's a really good spot for him. He's a horse, I think, that if he just matures a little bit, he might have that sort of same late kick as Sierra Leone, and I think he's okay.
Okay. And of course, he does have Derby points because he came in third in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. So
there you go.
Nice. All right. And then let's get into some Maryland stuff here, Louis. You want to?
Well, let's go to Oakland first, and we'll finish up with that late pick 5.
Okay. All right. We'll do that then. We didn't want to talk about General George.
Oh, you know what? No, I don't want to talk about the General George. I want to talk about the horse that won it in post time, because this is one of the cool parts about doing this show is I think for some people who watch horse racing, maybe Laurel isn't on your radar every Saturday. So, John, I wanted to go to you about this one. Just massive back-to-back performances here from a very fine horse, who is running, though, at Laurel Park. And so, hasn't been on that stage that we're used to, say, a Derby Day, a Belmont Day, whatever, even a Derby Prep Day, like a Risen Star Day. John, what do you think the ceiling is for him?
Well, first of all, if you thought that I was annoying about coffee with Chris, you hear me talk about post time. I could talk about
yes.
him.
Our coffee with Chris, horse of the year. Let's go.
I could lead a weekly podcast about post time and add a new stuff to talk about every week. But no, he's in fact the only horse in the country so far who has run 2 triple-digit bios, and he did them both very impressively. The only time he lost was in the Perryville at Keeneland in late October, and with Peace and Love towards Sheldon, I thought he maybe rode him a bit too confidently that day. He tried to go through a hole that ended up not being there, and then once he got clear, he didn't really have that punch. I was kind of afraid that the same thing was going to happen at the top of the stretch in the General George, because at about the 3/16 pole, he tried to go through a hole, ended up closing, and I was like, oh man, not again. But he swung up to the outside, and once he got going in about the last 8th, he just powerhoused away from him, won by 3 lengths. If it was an extra half furlong, he could have won by 6 or 7. As I said, earned another huge figure, and it was his first start off a 20-day layoff. I know after the Jennings, his owner, Mrs. Ellen Charles, and Brittany were a little unsure about wheeling back that quickly. However, they decided not to wait for a spot like, say, a Tom Fool and just go straight to the General George. Ended up paying off in a big way. I mean, I haven't heard anything concrete, but the next logical spot would be in the Carter at Aqueduct on April 6th. And it feels like he's been generating a little more national buzz with every win. It would not surprise me at all if he went off favored in the Carter. And I think he has a big chance to win that. But he won it last year with Doppelganger, who made a big closing rally. I think post time is well suited for 7 furlongs and a spot like that. And I was talking with someone else on another radio show I do, and he was saying,
I don't
know if he can win them at mile, but he's a nice horse. And I'm saying, obviously I'm biased, but if he keeps running these kind of races and he keeps getting better, why can't he win them at mile?
I agree.
What do you think, Dan? What's the ceiling?
I think the ceiling is still very, very high for this horse, because you have to remember he's still so lightly raced.
That's right.
He had an abbreviated 3-year-old campaign. This is a horse that's still learning. When you watch him and you talk to Sheldon Russell after the races, he turns it on sometimes and then he turns it off and he runs in spots. But when he does start running, he's like a steamroller in the stretch. He just destroys horses once he gets on the outside and starts moving. I think the Carter, as John said, is a very logical spot. The Carter is not the Carter that we remember from 30 years ago. It's a grade 1 in name only now. It's a race that he could easily win. He's 5 times the horse Doppelganger is. Doppelganger won the race last year. But in talking to Sheldon, and I've been talking to Brittany, they're also saying they're looking forward to stretching this guy out. Mm-hmm. And it might be sooner rather than later. So it'll be very interesting to see where he goes. And it would be a tell. I guess the path of least resistance, you hate to say that with a grade 1, would be the Carter. And I think you're supposed to get the grade 1 from Mrs. Charles of Hillwood Stable. So I would think the Carter is the next choice. But boy, I think the Met Mile, it's very appealing, very interesting. And with his running style, the big sweeping turns at Belmont Park, it might work. Well, although
especially over the 1 turn there.
Oh, it won't be at Belmont Park. It'll be at Aqueduct. But still, The wide sweeping turns at Aqueduct.
Yeah,
Right.
It didn't change it.
And the wide sweeping turn at Saratoga.
The wide sweeping turns at an unspecified New York track. We'll get the job done. And, also something about post time, and we talked about him being lightly raced, is as a 2-year-old, he had a really bad habit of not keeping a straight course in the stretch. Like he would always drift in, drift out. And I said to myself, if he ever really gets his head on his shoulders, he's going to be as good as he was as a 2-year-old. He's going to be a lot better. And he's showed a lot more maturity in his last few starts. He is still a little bit quirky, but he is a lot more level-headed in the lane. He keeps a straight course. And really, as long as he just keeps himself together. And also, another quirk about him is in the paddock, he goes out last. He doesn't go with the other horses, and he goes straight to the gate. Like, he doesn't wait in front of the fans. He just goes off by himself. So at about this time last year, I was very mopey all the time because I knew that post time was not going to be in the Derby at that point. But I do kind of wonder how he would have handled that crowd. And if he is in big races like the Met Mile or possibly like the Whitney down the road, how he's going to handle being in front of all these people. Because, General George Day had a nice crowd by Loyal standards, but it wasn't anything like he's going to end up seeing.
Like 12,000, something like that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I have two comments
every
about
stat out there. Come on. What's that?
I think we need to say something here. By the way, John, you're doing another show. But
yeah,
that's my response. I don't like that at all. Number 2, should we have a coffee with Chris Horse of the Year, and should we send a plaque to these fine people?
We can make a coffee with Chris,
coffee mug.
Coffee mug. Yeah,
yes. Of 2024. And we send it to the post.
Can we get that into the Maryland Award show that you were talking about earlier? Can we?
I think we should hand it out at the Preakness. I think it should be done. Dan, we'll do it in your layer. I think this can be done.
I actually think that people in Maryland would find the humor in that, and it would become a very covenant award. I mean, I think it would be like we do like a Natty Bow type thing. Yeah, I'm loving it. I'm liking the idea. Zach perked up when I said Natty Bow, so he was ready to go.
Come on,
okay.
people, you know what to do.
Oaklawn, we got the big races out there. Is the Honeybee 50 Oaks points and the Rebel 50 Derby points. Let's get rolling here because we're going long. We're all happy to be here. We're all happy to be together. The Grade 2 Honeybee is a mile and a 16th on the dirt for 3-year-old fillies. $400,000 race here on the line, and typically a pretty strong race. We'll see, Louis. We'll let you start first.
Yeah, I mentioned it when we talked about the original Alexandra. There's a reason they shipped West Omaha out. It was to give Tarifa a chance. I think she's absolutely the class here, and big field, which makes it a likable single in this case, just to keep some money at bay. Interested, by the way, for me, the most interesting runner here. How does Alice Beach come back after a decent fall in the one hole here? I'm not sure that they're going to ramp her up to try to win this race, but I'm very interested to see her form here. So largely, I'll be watching the Honeybee for 2 things. Does Cox have a monster in West Omaha? If she runs them off their feet, we're talking about major favorite in the Oaks, and that's fine. But what if an Alice Beach comes back here? We've seen Tommy Amos win this big race before on Oaks Day, and so that's a guy that I really trust with 3-year-old fillies. So I do think West Omaha absolutely the class here, but I'm watching Alice Beach in this one.
All right, Dan?
I think Alice Beach is probably the most intriguing horse in the race for all the reasons Louis mentioned. Horse was entered in the Breeders' Cup, had a temperature, got pulled from the race, is coming into this race off a significant layoff, might need it off the bench, but I won't be surprised if she runs well, and it's a good stepping stone to the next one for her. As he mentioned, listen, West Omaha is the horse to beat. If I had to try to use 2 horses maybe to upend them at prices, it would be Neom Beach.
I agree.
Rasmussen, a horse who just hasn't figured out how to punch it in yet. It's got good tactical speed, is right there turning for home, but is yet to finish. I'd like to see more of a finish from this horse. And the horse that won on the wet track last time out, Band of Gold, was a big price that day. And maybe just was simply a wet track move up. But boy, that horse fired in the stretch. Maybe she just is figuring the game out and likes Oaklawn Park. So again, the Cox horse is the horse to beat. The Amos horse is the horse I want to watch for down the road. And the 2 others, they're kind of value plays.
Of course, when we look at this race, Wet Paint won last year. We came in the Oaks with a whole bunch of buds. Secret Oath won the Kentucky Oaks Will Secret came in third, and She Dares the Devil won the Kentucky Oaks. So you literally have 2 of the last 4 winners and a third place finisher that's won this race. John, what do you think?
Well, I picked West Omaha on top. I mean, as you mentioned, she is a class of the field. If she runs the race, she probably wins this one. I think Band of Gold is mildly interesting. Number 2 off her win in the Motor of Washington, but it was such an outlier from her previous 2 starts, figure-wise. On the Brisnet scale, she hadn't run any better than 82, then jumps up and runs a 91. I think 2-1 on that proposition. To actually run back to that race is a bit dicey. One long shot who I like, the more I look at her, is number 10, Midshipman's Dance on the outside for Diodoro. It's her first start beyond 6 furlongs, but there's nothing in her pedigree that says she can't do that. Her dam, Styx Wonder Girl, won the Remington Park Oaks going 2 turns, and her 2 siblings who have won both won around 2 turns. She closed pretty well to win her first 2 starts, both on this track. Beat Stakes Company last time out, made a nice professional rally on the back of the pack. Kind of fighting a little bit in the stretch. Got up and won. Ran a big figure of 92 that day. A jump of 78 from her debut. Has been working pretty well lately at Louisiana Downs, which where Diodoro is based. Comes in here. I mean, she hasn't been beyond 6 furlongs. It's mile 16th. It's a bit dicey, but I think she'll be a pretty square price. And if she's like 8-9-1, I mean, a 1 in 10 shot, she'll get a mile and a 16th. I'll take that.
All right, I like it. I'm going to move on to the Grade 2 Rebel. This is another mile and 16th race on the dirt. 3-year-olds, $1.25 million, 50 Derby points. Basically, you win this thing, you're for sure in. Dan Illman, what is your take on this race?
I don't want to bet against Timberlake. He's my top pick. I think he's going to get through it. I think he's going to do it at a short price. I'm a big Just Steel fan. I thought he had a tough trip last time out. I just don't think he's a real 2-turn horse. He's my Pat Day mile horse right now. I like him at a 1-turn mile. I'm a little concerned, especially with his post position, him being wide again. I just think Brad Cox found a great spot for Timberlake.
John?
Well, first of all, I think the racing world as a whole has to just get all the Timberlake punts out of their system now. Because if this horse keeps moving forward and he ends up going off as a Derby favorite every week is going to be just torture. I think after so anything anybody has to say, any like NSYNC puns, any of his solo puns, just say them now so that we can be cleansed of them. Yes, that's right.
I mean,
for the Derby. I will say he has a
very...
shot. I mean, if he goes back to either of his last 2 races, he's going to win easy. So, as I was saying earlier in the show, if he wins by a lot, everyone is going to fall over themselves about him. I think he is expected kind of to win by a lot. So if he does do that, don't be too shocked and don't get too high on him. If you want to try to beat him, number 6, Dymatic, looks kind of interesting. He's been moving forward in each of his last few starts. Broke his maiden at 3rd asking. Last time I kind of lugged in the stretch, but still ran a pretty nice figure of 85. Adds blinkers and has a decent workout. Since then, I think if he keeps moving forward and maybe Timberlake doesn't fire first off the layoff, he's pretty live here. Gets Gaffalino in the saddle for the first time. What am I doing here for Asmussen? Just Steel. I mean, obviously, Wayne Lucas having another Derby horse is a great story every time he's in it. He actually, I think, is going to be the only great grandparent to saddle the horse in the Derby if he gets there. However, that last start in the Southwest kind of left me cold. I think he maybe should have made it a little bit closer in the end behind Mystic Dan. I think he took it over bet. I'd fade him in any multi-race bets, and he can beat me.
You said it. We didn't get it, though. Dymatic trained by
Asmussen.
There it is.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
No problem.
That's Steve's voice, people.
That is Steve
Right.
Asmussen, making sure that we pronounce his name the correct way.
Asmussen.
And by the way, that is outside the Stakes Barn at Pimlico. Perfect for this show. What's up?
Asmussen.
All right.
That was a great day.
By
By the way, if Johnny P likes the outside horse in the Honeybee in Midshipman's Dance, he's got to look at the outside horse in this race for Ron Moquette in Time for Truth at 13. 2 sprints, stretch it out in this one. Ronnie is a major player at Oaklawn, knows that course really, really well. The breeding all makes sense here. Mike and I, huge fans of Omaha Beach, excited to see his stud career really start to take off. Interested to see if he's got legs underneath him. I agree about Dymatic. My long shot play this weekend is going to be Carbone on the inside. I don't love that this is a son of Mitoli. I love Mitoli, want to be clear, but I don't love it for 2 turns of what we have to do this weekend. But once in a while, horses like Timberlake just aren't ready to go. And if you can get 15-1 and the horse draws inside, he's going to try to be the speed. Maybe Timberlake tries to go with him, isn't ready to go a mile and a 16th yet. Carbone could be that kind of value for you.
Who's Carbone trained by?
As my
Oh, that was great. All right. I'm entertained. It's okay. I can be entertained on this show. I just get the sense that Timberlake's gonna get beat in this race.
He's gonna what?
He's gonna get beat. Timberlake's gonna get beat in this race.
Well, we've already seen, and this is the interesting thing, we've seen Fierceness, we've seen Life Talk come in as major favorites on their prep route. First time off the layoff, didn't fire. Maybe that's look, if you're gonna make money on this late sequence, you got to beat him for sure.
By the way,
and I'll say also, I apologize, Mike.
Okay.
But I do think if you are playing a late sequence, either have a single Timberlake or not use him at all.
Yeah, I think that's probably right.
Don't hedge. Single account.
I think at the end of the day, the fact that I just said Timberlake's going to get beat is almost surefire now that the horse is going to win. So just go hammer that right now, 100%.
That is how this show works. Yes,
that's pretty much. Yeah, if I besmirch a horse, that horse is going to put together a historic performance. So, the exact opposite. If John Piazzi's like, hey man, I really like this horse, and you better go, put all your money on that horse. So, all right, let's go out to Laurel. We're going to talk about Miracle Wood Day, which sounds like an erectile dysfunction thing, but that's okay. We're going to do a little bit of a pick 5 sequence here. So let's do a quick pick here on race 5, which is the $10,000 claimer, 5.5 furlongs on the dirt for 4-year-olds, non-3 lifers, $22,000 purse. This is the class of the class right here. This is the trailer park of Laurel Park.
Be nice.
All right, John. Listen, this is your stuff right here. Who's anybody watching this race?
Well, one of my favorite local horses is.
By the way, I did say.
What was that? Sorry.
Quick pick on this thing.
Well, first, one of my local favorites is putting in here. It's a 5 Landon Jack, who's trained by John Salzman, who also trained Coffee with Chris. He loves to go out to the early lead and then just stop.
Hold
he always opens up by 2 or 3
lengths. Now a drinking game in this thing.
It's a great Coffee with Chris is absolutely.
Now he's a meme. Yeah. Now he's a meme on the show, so it's all over him. But he always opens up a big lead and then stops. And he has a Philly counterpart named Free Admission who does the same thing all the time. If 2 of them ended up in a match race, I don't know who would win. They might both lose, but they are pretty fun to watch. My top pick in here in what is a very wide open race and a speed race for almost everybody playing the sequence is number 6 Smooth Rico for Kieran McGee, who's having a decent meet. Carlos Lopez is up. This one has held his own at this level in his last few starts. 2 starts back, set the pace at this level, led almost the whole way, ended up coming in 3rd behind No Easy Days, who came back to win his next start, and Disputed Notion, who also won at this level last Saturday. Last time out, he chased the pace behind Bose Bourbon, who ran just a huge race that day. He broke on top, crossed to the rail and the lead, and won in gate wire fashion. Smooth Rico didn't have much of a chance to catch him, but he did hold on well until late, ended up in 3rd. Running a percent figure in the 80s for the 2nd time in his last 3 starts. This time he should get a lot of honest pace to run it. Sustenance has speed, as I mentioned. Landon Jack is going to go out to the front. So somebody's going to stop on the front end, and that'll set up nicely for Smooth Rico.
All right, let's see if Dan Ullman knows the meaning of quick pick.
It's a spread race. Irish Warlock last time out went to the lead and tired. He's going route 2.
Brett.
There you go, and he's not going to make the lead this time. He's going to rate and finish. I like Irish Warlock, and Rockland Express is a bomb.
There you go, Louis.
Watch how much weight horses carry in these kinds of races. The 3 Sustenance is interesting.
The next quick pick we'll do is the maiden here, which is race 6, 5.5 furlongs on the dirt, 3-year-old fillies, $27,000. This is if you win that $10,000 claimer, you aspire to get to this type of maiden race here. Actually, you can't because it's a maiden race, but it's you know what I mean. All
Backwards
right, so
aspiration on the horse
Louis,
racing happy hour.
Who do you like here?
I don't. No, this is it's.
You're the one who put this sequence on the sheet here. So
I did. No, it's my fault. I wanted to ask the guys. Actually, is there a horse in this race that we might see in the Black Eyed Susan? That's the thing I was looking at on this card. The answer is no. Just in case anyone was wondering, no one on this card will be racing in the Black Eyed Susan. Dude, I couldn't come to a good conclusion on this one. Maybe just go with Salzman and Russell aboard Sunny Sunshine and kind of move on with your day.
Is that the right play, John?
If Sunny Sunshine was running on a fair track last time, she would have won as much the best. She was wide the whole way. Winners Denison Girls came up the inside. And in fact, that was the race where even though it was the opener, I got the sense it was going to be a real biased track that day. And it was. If it's a fair track today, she's fast enough to get the rail and the lead, even from post 9, and she'll be gone.
Sunny Sunshine is way the horse to beat, but when in doubt, go with the Stranger. And the Stranger's on the outside. That's Lizzie's Lucky Penny, a first-time starter. This barn does win first out. I have a feeling this one's going to find a good spot.
All right, I like it. All right, let's get to the 2 stars of the show for the weekend. Again, someone who has a female race called the Wide Country, and the Miracle Woods, the male race. You can make your own joke there. Wide Country is a 7-furlong dirt race, 3-year-old fillies, $100,000 on the line. Dan, who's your pick in this one?
Like Miss Harriet, wire to wire in here. She looked good off the layoff last time out. Trainer Brandon McFarland told me the light bulbs come on in the last week. She's really figured it out, and she's lone speed.
How many times do a trainer say that to you, and then the horse goes out and puts out a dud?
Once in a while.
Yeah, okay. Just curious, John.
I love Miss Harriet as well. Broke a maiden in the Maryland Million lassie back in October. Didn't run so well in the Smart Halo, so I was a little skeptical of her going into her 3-year-old debut. However, she ran off the screen that day, broke on top, set the pace, and won by 7 with a huge figure. If what Dan said is true, she'll have an even bigger edge over these. Think she'll break on top and just keep going. And I do think that if anybody in this field is going to be in a Black-Eyed Susan, it's going to be her. It all depends on if she can handle the extra distance. This is her first start beyond 6 furlongs.
Louis?
Damn it, I agree. I'm not thrilled about that. I do think Ronan Goddess on the outside is interesting, and I think that you'd be a little betting on yourself and assuming it was a muddy track that helped her last out at Laurel Park. Only going 7 furlongs here. A reminder that we're still in this part of the season in Maryland where it's still sprinting season, right? It's not route season yet. And so horse that showed up well over 6 last time. I think we're way overlooking the Russell trainee on the inside. And I'm wondering if the 1 won't just get a good trip here and make the best of it. But I also wonder, because the horse hasn't been firing in mile races, if it's going to fire at 7 furlongs either. And so this might be a chance actually to beat Russell, which is pretty nice. I guess technically the horse is going from route to sprint. I guess that's a good angle there. So there you go.
And I want to note also that number 2 photo finish is, I believe, going to scratch because a quarantine was announced today of Charlestown Shippers, and she is based at Charlestown. So if you like her as a long shot, I'll tell you, but she's not going to go.
I thought she was interesting too, and they were shipping in Jock and everything too, which is really. But I got that news too. It's not good. So yeah, no, didn't mention.
All right, the Miracle Wood Stakes is a mile on the dirt for 3-year-olds, $100,000. Again, this is the road to the Preakness race right here. Who do we like in the Miracle Wood, John?
If number 6, Point Doom, was still trained by Brittany Russell instead of Kieran McGee, he would be a much, much, much lower price than what he's going to be. I think he's like 5 or 6 to 1 on the morning line. PPs have printed out, don't have them. But, he's done nothing wrong in his 2 local starts. He was 3 to 5 in a field that he should have being on New Year's Eve, and he did so. He won by 11 lengths as much the best. Kieran McGee, in what could end up being a claim of the year, took him out of that race for $30,000. I was a bit skeptical of him going into his last start, a first-level allowance optional claiming contest. Back on February 4th, he had to face Catahoula Moon, the Maryland Million nursery winner, and a nice 2-year-old in his own right. But he sat the trip, rallied professionally, won going away, and earned another huge figure. In fact, he's run resident figures in the 90s in back-to-back starts. He's the only one in the field who has done that. I think he'll get a nice trip near the pace and pounce, and he's definitely one to watch going forward. Number 7, Speedy Nest, a JB Nest homebred, is also kind of interesting in here. I mean, he's a real hit-or-miss type. 3 out of his last 4 starts have been very impressive wins. He's won huge figures in 2 of those races. But when he was collared on the lead in the Maryland Juvenile 2 starts back, he folded his tent and he lost by almost 6 lengths. If he gets to a clear early lead, and Jamie Rodriguez is going to do all he can to get that. If he gets to a clear early lead, he could be impossible to reel in. If he does get entangled early on, good luck.
All right, Dan, what do you think?
Well, the favorite Copper Tax is going to scratch, according to Gary Capuano, who talked to me this morning and said he's probably going to wait for the private terms 2 weeks after the Sam F. Davis, probably a little bit too much. I agree with John. I think Point Doom is logical. I think Speediness is logical. I think Sweet Sadi J is a horse you should use. I think this outside post is going to work very nicely. Stalking in range, turning for home. He's got to prove he can get the mile. I think he can get it with the right trip.
Louis?
I think the only horse we didn't mention that has an obvious shot is Regalo. I think the Russell trainee here didn't like that track on Long Island. I am not in the business of holding that against horses. And so I think Regalo's got a really serious shot here. I'm very not surprised that Copper Tax is out. Obviously, that news came on this show. But I was talking the other day, Dan, about that horse, and you could very much tell the intentions were, let's find out if he's a Derby horse. They found out that he probably isn't. And this is another fantastic route for him to take instead on the Laurel Path to Pimlico. And so I expect, by the way, even though he's scratching, Copper Tax to win the Tessio this year. I think he's that kind of horse.
Miracle Wood was the 5th place finisher in the 1986 Preakness Stakes.
Mhm.
So
That's right. And which other famous Maryland bred ran in that year's Preakness? Does anybody know?
Ooh, what year?
86.
Ferdinand came in second, which Ferdinand wasn't.
Broad Brush.
Who's?
Broad Brush.
Broad
In that
Brush.
year's Preakness.
There it is. Will
Miracle
the winner of this race run in the Preakness?
No.
Probably
I agree
not.
with
Probably
All
not.
right. So, it's
Roadblock to the Preakness. How about that?
roadblock to the Preakness. There it is.
I mean, there's nice horses in there, but I don't think any Preakness can next.
Fellas, this was an excellent
No,
show.
on Derby Day, or on Preakness Day, sure.
Yeah.
I
Yes,
always
sir, but-
forget what's the 3-year-old undercard race.
For
Sir
Barton.
Barton.
Yeah, the Sir Bart. You could see a horse in this race, for sure.
All right. Louis, are we for sure going to be there?
I will be. I don't know what you do anymore. I'm not.
That's if I let you in.
That's also true.
That is true.
By
Which
the way,
last
on
year
Miracle
actually
Wood
almost didn't
weekend-
happen. They didn't have Louis' credential last year.
I wonder why.
Hold on. There's still one more race in the Pick 5 sequence. We got to.
Oh, we got to do the $16,000 claimer. That's right.
Louis' favorite type of races. I mean, come on. Last leg of the Pick 5.
$16,000 claimer, mile on the dirt, 4-year-olds and up, $26,000 purse. Louis, who did you take in this one?
I actually like this race. I'm not mad at it.
Okay. All right.
You got Brooklyn Guy on the inside, I think, is a worthy favorite. Porch Swing, to me, though, is much more interesting coming out of a race. Excuse me, last out at Laurel, over fast go to 20 level. We're dropping a little bit below that. So I think the class relief here for Tori Alba and crew should prove really good. So I think Porch Swing will be my top play in the final race
John?
there on Saturday.
Oh.
I am fading Porch Swing. He rode the bias track, took 2 starts back, stepped up on a third track, last him out, didn't do as much. I'll take a shot against him. I know he's a chalk in the morning line, but I took Brooklyn Guy on top. He's dropping from the $25,000 level and has faced much better in his last few starts. When he faced a likes of these, a $16,000 now as a 2 field, a few starts back, he got up and won. We ran a big figure of 86 that day. Keeps running in the low 80s and has faced a lot better in his last few starts. If he runs his usual race, he'll go last to first up the inside and take advantage of that long 1 mile stretch. By the way, I think there could be 3 singles in the sequence in Sunny Sunshine, him, and Miss Harriet. And if you think so, it gives you a lot of room to spread in the other 2 legs and maybe catch a price.
There you go. Yeoman's nodding his head. He likes that play. All right. What do you
Love
got,
it.
Dan?
I like Practical Sense and Brooklyn Guy are my 2 horses in here. I think the Practical Sense is getting a little bit of class relief and against multiple winners last time, now into condition claimer. Keep an eye on Verbier. He's out of conditions. He's eligible for a 2 life. He's running against 3 life horses. This is a horse that's had some tough trips. One of these days he's going to pull off a big shocked upset.
All right. Well, fellas, this was an excellent show. Louis, you said you wanted to add something here at the end?
No, just on Miracle Wood weekend, a reminder that if the horse racing happy hour goes for longer than 4 hours, to see a physician.
That's very true. I'll probably be passed out. Just call something. Means I forgot to hit the end stream button. So
just Dan standing there like, stop
Yeah.
it, turn it off. Yeah, right. He'd be long
That's right.
gone. It's
Okay. All right, fellas. I hope you win. Cash a lot of tickets this weekend and have a lot of winners. We're gonna pay the tab. We're gonna get out of here. This has been Road to the Preakness on the Horse Racing Happy Hour.